All right, hey everybody, thanks for joining us on Patreon for spoiler talk for Megan Abbott's Give Me Your Hand. This is going to be a barn burner because I got some thoughts. What do you got, Livius?
I think it's tough. I think that there were so many good and important things that were revealed at the end of this book, but it was all like it was thrown in as an afterthought. Like the seeds were planted. But so let's talk Stevie Shoes, okay? Because this is probably my favorite thing about this book. But it should have been in the last 10 pages that this came to light, right?
I disagree.
So here's my thought on it. So for anybody who's, if you're some kind of weirdo that's listening to spoiler talk and you haven't read this book, the secret that Kit shares when they're juniors in high school, they're at that summer camp thing or whatever. She talks about screwing around with the guy whose dog she would dog sit. And you know, they didn't go all the way, but there was some digital and probably some oral action happening in his car. And this is what she shares.
When she was 15, by the way.
When she was 15, this happens, right? So I didn't put this together. I don't know if you did. But one of the reasons that Diane is sent away from her mother is that Diane was trudging up some conspiracy theories about her boyfriend Steve and being involved with a teenage girl. So I didn't put it together. Did you?
I did not put it together.
Okay.
Did not.
So it's revealed, you know, at the very end of the book.
So good.
And it was very good. And I'm just going to say what happened, and I want to tell you why I think it was misplaced, though. So eventually we find out that, and this is after Diane is dead, we find out that she learned this information from Kit, and she put two and two together and realized that it was her mom's boyfriend that Kit was fucking around with. So Kit, in some ways, I mean, being a 15-year-old girl, I don't know, I put the fault on her, but she's the catalyst for Diane's mom pushing her away.
Yep.
Which sends her to her dad, which eventually leads to her dad's murder.
Yep. Everything is Kit's fault. Everything is Kit's fault.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say, I mean, I don't know that I put the blame. Like I said, 15-year-old girl and a guy who's, you know, probably in his 30s or whatever. Like, I don't know how much, you know what I mean? I want to lay at her feet.
Right.
Because I'm thinking she was, you know, probably taken advantage of a little bit in that situation.
So she is the cause of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Which I think is brilliant. Now, I think I would have liked to have seen that reveal from Diane herself, even if not in an accusatory way. Like, I felt like it came after everything happened, and the revelation should have come a little earlier and probably from Diane's lips and not in a letter from her mom, which is how we discover it, right? It's in the letter.
It's in the letter. Well, no. How is it revealed? Yeah. She puts it together after the letter. Yeah. So here's my thought on that. So I'm just going to kind of run through, because I mean, in my mind, it's just built brilliantly, because like basically you find out that like the first bad thing is, like, if we're going through the timeline of how you read the book, the first bad thing is the dad dying. Well, I mean, is the Kit underage molestation thing with Stevie Shoes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we think that that's innocuous. We think that's just a random thing that happened. Then the dad dies, and you know she killed her. Like, she killed him even before it becomes obvious about halfway through the book.
Oh, yeah, that was so telegraphed. The second we found out her dad was dead, I was like, that crazy bitch killed her dad.
We just don't know why.
No.
And there's never really a satisfactory explanation for why, except for, like, it almost is like she was going to kill herself at that time, and then and then it ends up that she kills him instead.
Mm-hmm.
Then all the next bad stuff is what happens in the now time with Alex dying, which is still an accident, right?
Yes.
There's no question about that being an accident. Diane helping Kit cover it up, and then the murder of Serge, and then the suicide. But like all that stuff that was revealed at the very end, I was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Because like as you're reading and you're putting everything together, it completely redefines everything you read in that book. So like to have it land at like page like the final page or the second to last page makes you redefine all of the relationships and all of the actions that Diane did through the whole book. So like everything you have to see through a different lens. Diane was always mistreated by her parents. She felt like she didn't exist, was going to kill herself. Her dad died, right? Am I good so far?
Yeah. I mean, she killed him, but yeah.
She killed her dad, got away with it, and kind of refocused on her studies. But now she's got this thing with Kit where she confides in Kit, and now Kit knows her darkest secret. She feels like they're somehow in it together, right?
Yes.
Okay. But Kit doesn't get it. Kit thinks this is bad. She's like, fuck you. Why did you tell me this awful thing? Now I have to deal with this the rest of my life. And she's pissed, and she thinks Diane is evil, which, to a degree, I think we can agree. Diane's pretty evil, right?
Yeah. There's no doubt there.
Alex dies on accident. Kit's ready to go to the cops. Diane says, no, they'll never believe you. They're going to send you to jail. Kit's like, whoa. She's under the chloroform, so she just goes along with it. Massive guilt. Alex disappears. No one saw the Surge thing coming. Did you see Surge cleaning it up? Like, did you see that coming?
I totally thought Lena cleaned it up.
You did? Because I thought
which
Diane,
in some ways she did because she knew about it.
She knew about it. I thought Diane circled back. So there was a small, like, between the time you find out that Alex's body is gone and when you find out what happened, there was that short period of time. There's like probably 10% of the book where I was like, oh, Diane just circled back because she didn't trust Kit to keep her shit together and took care of it while she was gone. Just didn't tell her.
No, I was pretty sure because they never showed or mentioned it, and I kept thinking to myself, like, Lena's in on this, because at that point we knew that Lena had previously known Diane. So I'm right. I was a little bit with Kit on, I wouldn't have been surprised to find out they were lovers. Because, Kit even asks Lena at the end.
Right.
And Lena's like, oh, you're so much young. Growing up to do or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, I was with her because I was totally expecting that to be a thing. So I'm with Kit. I also have a lot of growing up to do or whatever.
You're so young, Livius.
Yeah. So, but I didn't see Surge biting it. I didn't see that coming.
But so the Surge thing is great because, like, that important thing I talked about earlier about that demonstrates his character, like we get rid of the animals so that you don't have to deal with it. Yep. That's exactly what he did with Alex's body. Was he cleaned it up so that the postgrads didn't have to worry about it. The tech cleaned up the mess.
Interesting. I didn't think about that way.
Yeah, it's a consistency of character that I thought was just fucking a brilliant stroke. And then that's where it got like, so she killed him with cyanide, which cyanide came up at some other point in the book that I don't remember. Is Rasputin. That's the Rasputin thing. Can we talk about Rasputin, or should I bring it up on the regular?
Absolutely.
Because, like, when Alex gets killed, he's bleeding out. It's obvious he's dead. He's got no vital signs or anything like that. And for some reason, I don't remember exactly. I'm not going to remember the exact timeline of it. But for some reason, Kit implies something about Alex, like moving or getting up or something, and Diane says he's not Rasputin. And in the moment I was like, oh, clever reference, because I don't know if you know about the killing, the murder of Rasputin. I don't know much about Rasputin, but I knew that
I heard he was hung like a horse.
Is that a joke, or? I'm
being serious. I'm looking it up right now.
Like, a big dick?
Yes.
So Rasputin, for whatever reason, I'm not going to go into the whole backstory of Rasputin because I don't know it very well, but at some point it was decided he was going to be assassinated, and the first thing they did was they tried to feed him food that had cyanide in it. And he ate the food, and there was no visible effect. And so later on, he asked for some sort of drink. I can't remember exactly what, probably like wine or something like that, which was also poison, which had no effect on him. Then they decided to take him home, and they shot him. And they thought he was dead after getting shot, like, I think once or twice in the chest or the torso. And then he leaps up and, fights his attacker, and eventually they shoot him like fucking point blank in the forehead, and that kills him, and they dump his body in the river. But like two poisonings weren't enough to kill homeboy. They still had to shoot him, and then the shooting didn't work, so they had to shoot him directly in his head, and that's how he died.
I'm not going to pretend like I heard anything you said because I've been reading up on Rasputin.
On his big wiener?
There are at least 30 articles debating on if he had a really large penis or not. As a matter of fact, one of them, I think, says that someone actually stole because his body was like embalmed or whatever. So there's a major loophole in their story. Even if a couple of robbers decided to chop off Rasputin's wiener, they'd have to immediately preserve it, or else, well, it would dry out or rot, and formaldehyde isn't really a household item. So it's probably a sea cucumber or something. So I don't know. So I guess someone was trying to sell a penis they were claiming was his that they stole.
Well, there was part of the legend was that, and there was an autopsy that was performed. Someone said that they had cut off his penis during the killing, but in the autopsy, his genitals were intact. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Okay, oh, hold on. There's a pictorial that says, "Is this Rasputin's dick?" This is from Jezebel.com. How are we not doing this over on Booked? I think that the pictures have been deleted from like their original source because this article is like 3 years old because there's a bunch of like empty.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, the one other thing I want to say, because I touched on this a little bit in our regular review, the letter that Diane's mother writes to Kit after Kit kills herself is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite parts of the book, because even after she knows that Kit claimed that Diane claimed to have killed her father, and she brushes that off because it's not as important as what's going on in her life.
Right.
All this crazy shit comes to a head, and her daughter kills herself, and she's still like this totally self-absorbed person. And it was done so well that, like, I don't know how to say this. Like, I've known people who are like that, and that's exactly how they sound. But if you know, and you know what, they sound really credible until you know the other side of the story.
I'm glad that came through for you too, because the whole time I'm reading that letter, I'm thinking to myself, man, I would become a murderer too if that was my mother. Like how absorbed, and how like she externalizes blame for everything. And I mean, like, can you imagine just everything that happens on a daily basis in any household is your fault, whether you're even there or had anything to do with it? Like that woman was toxic in so many ways. So.
And it was done super, super well. So again, yes, this is an important plot of the story. Ultimately, she's part of the reason that Diane becomes who Diane is. But, in the timeline of the story, it's kind of irrelevant. But I thought it was done super, super well.
Yeah. And then talking about that, let's talk about some of the other twists that kind of hit along the way. Because, one of the plot twists that I thought was great was discovering that Diane was originally a potential, like, what do you call them? Like research, like a subject, like a test subject.
She had shown up for the whatever, I don't say clinical trial, because they weren't really trying anything, but research.
She was a potential test subject, and she was eliminated because the emotions that she was experiencing weren't limited to the timeline of her menstrual cycle. And she's like, no, you have to help me. No, this is, and so like there was a cry for help there that was outside of the range of like the study's ability to help her, even though it was obvious that she definitely had a problem. And that was kind of fucked up, because like from Diane's perspective, she's reaching out. She thinks that this is it. This is what's going to save me. And from the research perspective, it's like, this is obviously not what's wrong with you. We can't help you, but we encourage you. We encourage you to get help.
Right.
It's fucked up.
The beauty in that is that up until that point, that we find that out, I really believe that this was all set up to be that she is a victim of this condition.
Right. Yep.
So I was like, well, this is pretty fucking transparent. You know, you've got a story about a high school friend who's crazy, and now you're going to study premenstrual dysphoria.
Yep.
And you kind of see it pointing back. So I think it's slightly genius that was turned off. So like you're given that immediately, and you and I both agreed on this, right? Like we knew she killed her dad. That was just we assumed that, and we were right.
It was,
but we also
large,
assumed, we also assumed that it had to do with this condition that they were going to be studying, and that didn't. So I mean, that was a nice little mix of maybe sleight of hand, maybe like look over here at this thing. Right. You know, while I change the story on this. So yeah, I mean, it was done very well. I mean, overall, I mean, I guess I'll save this for the wrap up. So never mind the overall.
So the other plot thing that I thought was great was discovering that Kit beat out Diane for the Severin scholarship, but it's only because she like ratted out Diane as being a fucking murderer. Holy shit, dude. Like Kit is always, obviously this is from her perspective, but like it's always assumed that Kit does the right thing all the time, and she's like above board, and she does all, you know, she's a good girl. But like she stole that fucking scholarship from Diane by basically saying, "Hey, I'm worried this person's a murderer."
Well, yeah, I just want to point out what you just said though, that actually does make her a good person.
I mean,
well, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like she did the right thing. She told a guidance counselor, you know, with the, and not, you know, really giving away who or whatever, but yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is I don't think she did it maliciously because the scholarship was on the line. Yeah. I think that was an unintended consequence of her doing what she thought was the right thing.
But then you circle back to like, we know none of this, we know that it's a possibility that none of this would have happened if she hadn't hooked up with Stevie Shoes and gotten Diane kicked out of her mom's place, like, or if Diane's mom believed her and kicked her, you know, and separated from Stevie Shoes, maybe she would have a better relationship with her mom, wouldn't have gone to her dad's, wouldn't have killed her dad, wouldn't have been a killer, wouldn't have told Kit. Like, it's all this, like, it's all pivoting on this fucking part of the story that when you first learn it, seems like it has nothing to do with anything, which I think is fucking amazing.
Yeah, well, it's an inconsequential part of the story in that we don't actually even see it. It's just relayed to us, right? Like, it's not even a scene in the book.
Yeah.
The scene is giggly girls sharing dark secrets in a camp.
Like, ooh, I blew a dude.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Anything else you want to talk about before we...
I don't know, man. Like, I feel like I could talk about this a lot. I think that the final thing I'll talk about is, like, there's the 10 years later. So, like, the entire book is now then. Except for there's one 10 years later chapter, and then it goes back to then, right? It ends on then, I think. Anyway.
Yes.
The 10 years later chapter basically shows us that Kit is thriving. And she's still working with Dr. Severin, despite everything that went down with Diane. And they even acknowledge, like, in the 10 years later part, like, what the impact was to the world's impression of what's going on in the lab and everything. But obviously, the science survived. And I think that's why there's that 10-year later thing, is basically to say everything that Diane didn't have a negative impact on the research, but it also shows that Kit is thriving. And so, in a way, you could say that the biggest victim in this book is still Diane, even though she did a bunch of fucked up stuff. Like, she's the one who lost everything.
Yeah, and I think that only in retrospect, and I guess I wonder how many people read this book and then don't spend anywhere near as much time thinking about it as you and I are.
Yeah.
Diane is, nothing she really did, I don't think, came from malice.
Right.
Like, clearly she's affected. She's ready to kill herself and then last minute decides to poison her dad instead. You know, that's not a good thing, but I don't think it was done malevolently. So, so yeah, she's ultimately a victim of, poor parenting maybe, and the lack of psychiatric help. Yeah. That she probably would have benefited from. Where, yeah, I guess she just looks like a psycho. On the surface, it looks like she's a psycho chick that suffers from premenstrual dysphoria.
Yeah.
But ultimately, she has some issues, some emotional and probably some mental issues that, like you said, and I don't know if she really has those issues, were they really spurned on by the Stevie Shoes thing, or was that just the straw that broke the camel's back? Would she have ended up that way? Yeah, it's hard to say. Nobody knows. Megan Abbott maybe knows, but even if we ask her, she won't tell us.
Right, because authors like to, there's a mystery there. It's up to the listener or the reader.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. We know you have an idea, but
yep.
It just makes the whole book, like the whole purpose of the book is to make you feel like Diane is the evil thing that's going to mess up everything for Kit, when really Kit messed up everything for Diane, and Diane is just really reacted poorly to it.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
It's just it's a fun twist.
She was so bought into the premenstrual dysphoria that she had a hysterectomy, an elective hysterectomy at like 22 years old or something. Yeah.
Yeah, she thought it was going to fix everything.
So that shows her at least desire to be better.
Yeah.
And that obviously it didn't work.
Like she was trying to work through shit. Mm-hmm. She was just making really bad choices, which is weird because she's such a smart person. And then there was also like her fixation on Kit. Like Kit didn't know. And this may be that like movie, if everybody just kind of talked about shit more, like it wouldn't get this bad. Because if she told Kit, Stevie Shoes is my stepdad, and I got fucking booted out of that house because you fucked my stepdad, like maybe Kit would feel differently, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I don't know. I think one of the things, God, the more we talk about this, the more interesting it becomes, right? Mm-hmm. So Diane didn't hold any of that against Kit.
Right. She thought Stevie Shoes was obviously the bad guy.
Right, but she spends she spends some time, driving Diane to be, or Kit to be a better Kit than she is. And then ultimately when she's, when she shares the secret with her, and then when Kit shrugs her off, she like persists on trying to be friends with her. Like she doesn't understand. Like she just wants Kit's approval or Kit's friendship or Kit's love or whatever. So,
well, I feel like she sees, obviously they were kindred in the fact that they were both very smart and very adept at like math and science and stuff like that. So she sees that parallel, and I think she assumed a parallel of enduring and dealing with the dark shit in life. And by killing her dad, she thought, well, now we're in this together. This makes us stronger. This bonds us together. And it did the exact opposite.
I'm really glad we had this talk.
Yeah.
It has changed a little bit my outlook on this book, and I'm being honest, and I'll summate how that works in our wrap up back over our regular episode for the latest Megan Abbott book. Take my hand, will you? What's it called? Tell us this book called?
It's still called Give Me Your Hand.
Give Me Your Hand. Doesn't make any sense. At no point in the book is anybody giving anybody their hand.
They talk about...
There is a part where they hold hands. It's when they're in the weird graduation party at the hair salon.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, dedicated Patreon supporter. We super appreciate you. Because quite honestly, if it wasn't for you guys, I would have a different, not different, maybe different, a slightly different outlook on this book. So you guys make this happen. Thanks. And don't forget, if you want a t-shirt, because we never made that $200 a month thing, you can still buy one over at bookedpodcast.myshopify.com.